Questions. My dear friends, have you ever made a perfect plan for your life? Maybe you thought, I'll graduate at 21, get married at 25, buy a car at 27, and have kids at 30 born. And then life said, questions. Nice plan, let me show you my version. But life has this funny way of reminding us, we are not the CEO of the universe. I remember once a young man came to me and said, questions. Gaur Gopal das G, I planned everything perfectly, but nothing seems to be working. What is God even doing up there? I smiled and said, my dear boy, God is not sleeping on the job. Questions. He's simply editing your draft. Oh, because, my friends, sometimes our plan is good, but God's plan is better. It's just that He doesn't show us the whole PowerPoint presentation in advance. Questions. We want everything now. Instant noodles, instant fame, instant love. But God's plan is not instant, it's divine timing. Imagine this, you set your GPS to reach your destination. Questions, but then there's traffic roadblocks, maybe even a few wrong turns. Does the GPS shout at you? No, it calmly says, rerouting. That's exactly how God works. You may think, questions, my life is off track. But God whispers, I'm rerouting you to something far greater. But let me share a small story. A farmer planted seeds in his field. Weeks passed and nothing grew. She got frustrated. His neighbor planted the same seeds and they sprouted. He ran to God and said, why are you unfair? And God said, my dear child, questions. Your seeds are growing too, just underground. The roots must strengthen before the tree appears. So, if your success isn't visible yet, it doesn't mean God forgot you. Questions. It simply means your roots are growing deeper. We often mistake delay for denial. But delay is not denial, it's preparation. Think about Joseph from the Bible. He was thrown into a pit. Questions. Sold as a slave and even imprisoned. But what looked like tragedy was training for his destiny. He had to go through the pit before reaching the palace. So my friends, questions. When life puts you in a pit, don't panic. You're just in God's preparation phase. Sometimes God uses pain to polish us. A diamond doesn't shine until it's cut. Questions. A pot doesn't hold water until it's baked. A sword doesn't become sharp until it's hammered. When storms hit your life, don't ask, why me? Ask questions. What is this teaching me? Because the storm you're going through is often preparing you for the platform you're meant for. And please stop comparing your plan with someone else's. Questions. Your friend might be on chapter 20 while you're on chapter 3. But remember, every story unfolds at its own pace. When you compare, you complain. When you trust, you transform. Questions. The butterfly doesn't envy the bird. It simply embraces its own wings. Faith, my friends, is trusting God even when you don't understand the plan. When your prayers seem unanswered. Questions. God may be saying, not now, or I've got something better. Sometimes God protects you by not giving what you asked for. How many times have we looked back and said, questions. Thank God that didn't work out. That's divine protection in disguise. So what should we do while waiting for His plan to unfold? One word, gratitude. Questions. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's present. It keeps your heart peaceful while God works in silence. Even when it rains, thank Him for watering your seeds. My dear friends, questions. Remember this, our plans are temporary. God's plan is eternal. Our sight is limited. His vision is infinite. When you can't trace His hand, trust His heart. Because in the end, questions, everything that happened to you will turn out to have happened for you. So next time life surprises you, smile and say, that must be God's plan kicking in. But trust the process. Questions. Walk the path and know He's still writing your story and it's going to be a beautiful bestseller. Questions. Have you ever sat down one evening with a cup of chai or coffee in your hand and started imagining how perfectly your life is going to unfold? You think, I'll finish my studies by 21. Questions: get a great job by 23, buy my dream car by 26, marry my soulmate by 28, have kids by 30. Questions: and by 35 I'll be so settled that even Google Maps will show me as a permanent location. But then life happens. The job you wanted didn't come through. Questions: the relationship you thought would last forever ended abruptly. The business you invested your heart into failed. And suddenly, questions: the beautiful plan you created with so much excitement crumbled like a cookie in hot tea. And what's our first reaction? Why me, God? What did I do wrong? We start questioning our worth. Questions: our destiny, and even God's fairness. But my friends, here's the truth. Just because your plan didn't work doesn't mean God's plan failed. Life is not a straight line. Questions: it's a series of divine detours. We want everything to happen our way, smoothly, quickly, and perfectly. But sometimes, questions, the road that looks like a delay is actually the most important turn in your journey. Let's take a simple example from everyday life. Suppose you're rushing to work, questions, and suddenly there's heavy traffic. You get frustrated thinking, oh no, I'm going to be late. You honk, you complain, you grumble. But 5 minutes later, questions, you see there's been an accident just a few blocks ahead. Had you not been delayed, you might have been part of it. That traffic jam that irritated you actually protected you. Similarly, questions, sometimes in life, the delays and detours are God's way of saving you from unseen dangers or preparing you for unseen blessings. What feels like a setback is often a setup for something greater. Questions. I remember once meeting a young woman after a seminar. She said, Gaur Gopal Das ji, I prayed so hard to marry someone. Everything was fixed. The families agreed. Questions. The dates were decided and suddenly the wedding was called off. I was shattered. I smiled and said, sometimes rejection is God's protection. She didn't understand it then. Questions. But a few years later, she met someone else, a man who truly valued her, supported her dreams, and respected her faith. She came back to me with tears in her eyes and said, questions. If that earlier wedding had happened, I would have been stuck in a life that wasn't meant for me. Now I understand God's plan was better. You see, we make plans based on what we know. Questions. But God makes plans based on what He sees. He sees the bigger picture, the corners we can't turn, the roads we can't travel, the people we shouldn't chase. Questions. Imagine a little child holding his father's hand in a crowded street. The child keeps pulling the father towards the toy shop. The father smiles and says, not now. The child starts crying. Questions, thinking his father is cruel. But what the child doesn't know is, there's a slippery patch right in front of the shop. The father is waiting to cross safely first. That's how God handles us. Questions. We cry, we not now, and He gently says, because I'm protecting you from something you don't see yet. When our plans fail, it's easy to lose hope. Questions. But that's exactly when we must pause and remind ourselves, God's delays are not God's denials. There's a story I often share. A man planted a bamboo seed and watered it daily. Questions. Months passed and nothing happened. He almost gave up. But in the 5th year, suddenly the bamboo shot up, not by a few inches, but by 90 feet. What was it doing for all those years? Growing roots. Questions. Deep, strong roots that could support its height. Sometimes, when nothing seems to be happening in your life, something is happening inside you. You're growing roots, strength, patience. Questions. Resilience, faith. God is preparing your foundation for something tall and lasting. Think of your own life. Questions. How many times have you been upset over something not working out, only to look back later and say, questions. Thank God it didn't. Maybe you didn't get that job because you were meant to build your own business. Maybe that friendship ended because it was draining your peace. Questions. Maybe that delay in your career, allowed you to meet someone who changed your life. Life, my friends, is not about having a perfect plan. It's about having the right perspective when plans change. Questions. Let's be honest, none of us can predict how life will unfold. But what we can do is respond with faith instead of frustration. We can trust that even when things seem to be falling apart, questions, they might actually be falling into place. The truth is, God doesn't always give us what we want, but He always gives us what we need. The two may not look the same at first, but over time, questions, we realize His wisdom is far deeper than our wishes. So next time your plan doesn't work out, when that relationship ends, when that exam result disappoints you, questions, when that promotion doesn't come, pause for a moment. Instead of saying, woe me, try saying, show me God. Questions. Show me what you're teaching me through this, because behind every no is a not yet. Behind every closed door is a divine redirection. Questions. And behind every unanswered prayer is a better blessing in disguise. So keep planning, yes. Keep dreaming, yes. But always leave a little space for divine editing. Questions. Because while we are busy drawing lines, God is painting masterpieces. And when you finally see how everything connects, how every failure, delay, questions, and detour was leading you somewhere beautiful, you'll look up, smile, and whisper, now I understand your plan, God, and it was perfect all along. Questions. Have you ever noticed how we humans love to be in control? We plan everything, from what we'll eat tomorrow to how our life should look 5 years from now. We carry diaries, make to-do lists, questions, set reminders, and even schedule when to relax. We say, this is my timeline, my decision, my dream. But have you ever thought about how funny that sounds to God? Questions. Because while we are busy creating spreadsheets for our future, He is smiling gently and whispering, my child, questions, I have a better plan for you. It's almost as if God is the ultimate event manager, and we are those overexcited clients who want to interfere in every little detail. Questions. We tell Him what color theme to choose, what time to start the show, and who should attend. And when He arranges something, we panic. Oh no, questions. That's not what I asked for. But if only we could step back and see the bigger picture, we'd realize He wasn't ruining the event, He was perfecting it. Questions. Let's be honest, most of us have had moments where life did not go according to our script. We thought we'd be in one place, doing one thing, with certain people. But life took a turn. Questions. We lost something, missed an opportunity, or ended up somewhere completely unexpected. And initially it hurts. We feel helpless, angry, disappointed. But later when the dust settles, questions, we often look back and say, oh, now I understand why that had to happen. This is what I call the illusion of control. We believe we are steering the ship, but in truth, questions, we are just holding the rudder while God controls the wind and the waves. Take an everyday example. You wake up in the morning with a perfectly planned day. You've got a meeting at 10, lunch at 1, questions, gym at 6, dinner at 8. You leave home on time and suddenly your car won't start. You try again. Nothing. You get frustrated. You call for a cab and it's late. Now you're angry, muttering, questions. Why does this always happen to me? But then you get a call that there was a major accident on the route you usually take. You freeze for a second, realizing, had your car started on time, questions, you might have been there. That's when you whisper, thank you, God. You see, we only control the ignition, but God controls the destination. And when He stalls the engine, questions, it's not to punish you, it's to protect you. I once met a young man who told me, I worked so hard for a promotion. I stayed late, sacrificed weekends, did everything right. Questions. But when the list came out, my name wasn't there. I was heartbroken. I told him, sometimes not getting what you want is the best thing that can happen to you. A few months later, questions. his department was downsized, and several people who got promoted lost their jobs. Meanwhile, he was transferred to another branch, where he got a bigger role, a higher position, questions, and better peace of mind. He came back and said, "I thought my life was falling apart, but it was actually falling into place." That's how God works. While we are crying over broken pieces, questions, He is busy rearranging them into a beautiful mosaic. The illusion of control makes us restless. We want to know everything. The next step, the next result, the next miracle. Questions. But life doesn't work that way. Faith means walking even when the road ahead isn't fully visible. It means saying, "God, I don't know where this is leading." Questions. But I trust you anyway. Think of it like a movie. When we sit in the theater, we don't know what's going to happen next. But we trust the director knows the story. Questions. We don't pause the film to demand explanations for every scene. We just watch and wait because we believe it will make sense in the end. Yet when it comes to our own life, we want to be the actor. Questions. Director, editor, and producer, all at once. Let me share something simple but powerful. Once a little boy was walking with his father on a foggy road. The father said, "Questions. Hold my hand." The boy replied, "No, Papa, you hold mine." The father smiled and asked, "What's the difference?" The boy said, "If I hold your hand, I might let go when I'm scared." Questions. But if you hold mine, you never let go. That, my friends, is the essence of surrender. Control says, "I can handle it." Faith says, "God." Questions. You handle it, but we don't lose control. When we trust God, we gain peace. Because peace doesn't come from knowing the plan. It comes from knowing the planner. Questions. Every one of us has gone through moments that made no sense at the time. A heartbreak, a failure, a sudden loss. But if you look back now, can you see how those experiences shaped you? Questions. They taught you patience, humility, compassion, and strength. They guided you toward people you needed to meet, lessons you needed to learn, and paths you were meant to walk. Questions. You thought life was breaking your control, but it was actually breaking your illusion. It was gently reminding you, "My child." Questions. Stop trying to be the author of a story that I am already writing for your good. So, my friends, stop fighting for control. Instead, start flowing with trust. When something doesn't go your way, questions. Don't immediately assume it's wrong. It might just be God's gentle nudge saying, "Questions. I have a better route." A life becomes much lighter when you realize you don't have to carry the burden of controlling everything. Your job is to show up with effort, faith, and gratitude. Questions. God's job is to align the results. So plan as much as you want, but after making your plans, smile and say, "Now God, do as you wish." Because in the end, questions. The wisest people are not those who control everything, but those who know when to let go and let God lead. Remember, when you let go of the illusion of control, you don't lose power. Questions. You simply hand it to the one who knows how to use it perfectly. And that's when life truly begins to flow. Not by your plan, but by His perfect timing. Questions. Imagine this. You're driving to an important destination. You've typed the address into your GPS, turned up your favorite song, and started your journey. You're confident, you know the route. Questions, and everything seems perfect. Suddenly you miss a turn. The GPS says in its calm robotic voice, "Recalculating route." It doesn't scream, You fool." Questions. Why didn't you turn left? It simply finds another way to get you to the same destination. It doesn't abandon you for making a mistake. It patiently redirects you. That, my friends, questions, is exactly how God's positioning system works. The divine GPS. God never abandons you when you take a wrong turn in life. He just quietly whispers, "Rerouting." And sometimes, questions. You may lose direction. Sometimes you may take the longer road. Sometimes traffic slows you down. But as long as you stay connected to the divine signal, you'll always reach your destination. Questions. In our lives, we often expect a straight highway, smooth, clear, and fast. But life's journey is more like a winding mountain road, filled with curves, fog, and unexpected detours. We might say, questions. God, I thought you wanted me to go this way. And he smiles and says, yes, but I needed you to learn something on the way. Let's think of a daily life example. Questions. You planned to go to a particular college, but you didn't get admission. You were disappointed, even angry. You cried and thought, my dreams are over. But later, you got into another college. Questions. Met new friends, found your passion, maybe even met someone who changed your life forever. Looking back, you realize that rejection was redirection. Questions. God wasn't saying no, he was saying, I have something better. The GPS analogy teaches us three things: trust, patience, and connection. First, trust. Questions. Just like you trust your GPS to guide you, even when you don't know the roads, you have to trust God when the path isn't clear. You don't question the GPS when it takes a longer road, do you? Questions. You don't say, why are you taking me this way? You trust that it knows the map better than you. Similarly, God sees what we can't. The traffic ahead, the accidents waiting to happen. Questions. The broken bridges. He guides us around them, not because he wants to delay us, but because he wants to deliver us safely. Second, patience. Sometimes, questions. The GPS tells you to take the next exit in 5 kilometers, but you start wondering, why isn't there an exit now? You might feel restless, tempted to take a random turn just to save time. Questions. But the moment you go off-road, it says again, recalculating. In life too, when we get impatient and try to force things, relationships, career, success, we end up taking longer. Questions. God never rushes, he works in perfect timing. The longer road may be preparing you for something you aren't ready for yet. And third, connection. If you lose signal, the GPS can't guide you. Questions. It needs a connection to the satellite. Similarly, your connection with God, through prayer, gratitude, reflection, or meditation, keeps your life aligned. When you disconnect, confusion begins. Questions. But when you reconnect, clarity returns. I once met a man who told me, I made so many mistakes in my life. Wrong choices, bad friends, wrong priorities. Questions. I feel like I've completely lost my way. I said to him, do you still believe in God? He said, yes. I smiled and said, then you haven't lost your way. Questions. You're just being rerouted. Or you see, God's GPS never expires. It doesn't matter how far you've strayed, how many wrong turns you've taken. The moment you call out sincerely, questions, the signal reconnects and he starts guiding you again. No shame, no scolding, just gentle guidance. That's the beauty of divine mercy. Questions. Think of Jonah in the Bible. God told him to go to Nineveh, but he ran in the opposite direction. And what did God do? He didn't abandon him. He allowed a storm, a whale, and finally, questions. Jonah found his way back. God didn't cancel his destination. He simply rerouted him through experience. Many of us panic when life doesn't follow our chosen route. We think, questions. Why is this happening to me? But just because the route has changed doesn't mean the destination has. God might be taking you through unfamiliar roads, not to confuse you, but to complete you. Questions. When you drive at night, your headlights only show you a few meters ahead, not the entire road. But you keep moving because you trust that as you move forward, the next few meters will be revealed. Questions. That's exactly how God's GPS works. He doesn't show you the entire plan, just the next step. Because if he showed us everything, we'd either panic or become lazy. Questions. He shows us little by little so we grow in faith. Sometimes life will bring sudden turns. Losing a job, breaking a relationship, moving to a new city. You may feel lost. But remember, questions. Every turn is part of the journey. The GPS doesn't always choose the fastest way. Sometimes it chooses the safest. And sometimes God slows us down to protect us from a disaster we can't see yet. Questions. I remember a friend who desperately wanted a promotion. He worked hard but was overlooked again and again. He was frustrated and told me, maybe I'm just unlucky. A year later, questions. His company went through a crisis and the people in that higher position lost their jobs. Meanwhile, he was transferred to a new project that changed his life. When he looked back, he said, questions. No, I understand why God delayed it. He was rerouting me to stability. That's why, my friends, whenever you face a delay, a detour, or a disappointment, don't assume it's a dead end. God's GPS is still active. The divine voice is still whispering, recalculating route. So, stay connected, keep moving. Trust the process. Because even when you miss a turn, questions, even when life feels off track, God is still guiding you home. And when you finally reach your destination, maybe not the one you planned, but the one He designed, you'll realize every delay, questions, every detour, every red light was perfectly timed. Then you'll smile and say, thank you, God, for being my GPS, my guiding, protecting, and sustaining system. Questions. We live in a world that moves fast. Everything is no. We want fast food, fast Wi-Fi, fast results. We want our prayers answered instantly, our dreams fulfilled immediately. Questions. Our success to come overnight. But the truth is, life, and especially God's plan, doesn't operate on our clock. God's timing is not delayed, it's deliberate. Questions. What seems like a delay to us is often divine preparation. And sometimes when a door closes in front of us, it's not rejection, it's redirection. Questions. Have you ever felt frustrated when things didn't go the way you expected? You prepared so hard for that job interview, gave it your best, and still didn't get it. Questions. You put your heart into a relationship, but it didn't work out. You saved money for a plan that fell apart at the last minute. You start thinking, why is God doing this to me? Questions. What's the point of trying if it never works out? But pause for a second. What if that no wasn't a punishment but protection? What if that delay was God's way of saying, questions, I'm saving you from something you can't see yet. There's a story of a little girl who was crying because her mother took away her toy. Questions. She didn't know that her mother was about to replace it with something better, a new doll. From the child's perspective, it was cruelty. From the mother's perspective, it was care. Questions. That's exactly how God deals with us. He takes away certain things not because He wants to hurt us, but because He prepares space for something greater. Let's think of a real life example. Questions. Suppose you missed your train. You're standing at the platform, angry, frustrated, checking your watch, thinking, questions. Why did this happen today? Then you find out later that the train you missed met with an accident. Suddenly, your frustration turns into gratitude. Questions. You realize that the delay wasn't denial, it was divine protection. How many times have we cried over something we didn't get, only to look back later and thank God for not giving it to us? Questions. That job we didn't land, that person we didn't marry, that plan that didn't work. All of them were stepping stones to something better. Questions. The pain of the delay often hides the wisdom of divine timing. I remember once, after a seminar, a young man came to me and said, Gaur Gopal das GA. I've been trying to go abroad for years. Questions. Every time I apply for a visa, something goes wrong. I feel like God doesn't want me to succeed. I told him, when God delays your journey, it doesn't mean He is denying your destination. Questions. Maybe He's preparing the road. A few months later, he wrote to me saying that the company he was originally applying to had shut down due to financial issues. But now, questions, he got a new opportunity in a much better firm, in a better country, and with better benefits. He said, Had my plan worked out earlier, I would have been stuck in a failing company. Questions. Now I understand that God's delay was actually His direction. You see, delay doesn't mean defeat. Sometimes it's simply God saying, not yet. Because if you receive something too soon, questions, before you're ready for it, you may lose it. A fruit plucked before it ripens tastes bitter. A dream achieved before maturity becomes a burden. Questions. Timing matters, and God's timing is always perfect. There's a powerful example in nature. When a caterpillar is in its cocoon, it looks motionless. Someone impatient might think, questions, nothing's happening inside. But inside that stillness, transformation is taking place. If you try to break the cocoon early to help, the butterfly will die. Questions. The struggle and the waiting are necessary for its wings to strengthen. Similarly, your delays are shaping your wings, your patience, your faith, your character. Sometimes, questions, the doors that close are actually saving you from rooms that weren't meant for you. It might look like a rejection, but maybe God is saying, questions, this door leads to a smaller life than the one I've planned for you. The truth is, we often pray for open doors, but rarely thank God for closed ones. Questions. Yet it's the closed doors that shape our destiny the most. Think about it. If every door opened for you, you'd walk into every one of them, even the wrong ones. But God, in His love, questions, closes certain doors because He knows where they lead. Every no from life is a yes from God to something better. The delay also teaches us humility. Questions. When things don't happen on our timeline, we learn to let go of control and trust the higher plan. It softens our ego and strengthens our surrender. Questions. That's when miracles start to happen. Not when we force them, but when we allow them. A student once told me, "Sir, I failed my exam twice. I thought I was cursed." But later, questions, he got admission into a different program that led him to his dream career. He laughed and said, "Those failures were the best thing that happened to me." The delay wasn't a denial. Questions. It was a redirection. When life delays something, it's preparing alignment, aligning circumstances, people, timing, and your inner readiness. You might not understand it now, but one day, questions, you'll look back and see how everything had to happen exactly the way it did. So, the next time you face a delay, when your plans slow down, your dreams seem far, questions, or doors close unexpectedly, don't panic. Take a deep breath and remember, the delay is not a punishment, it's preparation. The door isn't locked forever, it's just not your turn yet. Questions. Keep the faith, keep walking, keep trusting that every closed door is guiding you toward the right one. Because when the time is right, not your time, questions, but God's time, the door will open effortlessly and you'll realize why the delay was necessary. And when it does, you'll smile and say, "Thank you, God." Questions. For every not yet, because now I see, your delay was never a denial. It was my direction toward destiny. Questions. If you've ever planted a seed, you'll know that the most magical part of its growth is the part you can't see. You dig a small hole, place the seed in the dark soil, cover it up, and water it. Questions. Then nothing happens. Days pass, weeks go by. You look at the soil and see absolutely no change. You begin to wonder, did it even sprout? Questions. Did I do something wrong? But deep under that layer of earth, hidden from your eyes, life is stirring. The seed is cracking open, roots are forming. Questions. And it's quietly preparing for its moment to rise. That's how our lives work too. Every dream, every prayer, every effort we make, it all begins like a seed planted in the soil of time. Questions. We can't always see the results immediately, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Just because your growth isn't visible yet, doesn't mean it isn't real. Growth, my friends, questions, it begins underground. We live in a world obsessed with quick results. We want instant success, instant recognition, instant breakthroughs. But the truth is, questions, real growth, the kind that lasts, takes time. A tree that grows overnight may fall with the first strong wind, but a tree that takes years to grow roots will stand tall through any storm. Questions. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. In life, when things seem quiet, when your efforts seem unnoticed, when your prayers seem unanswered, remember questions. You're in your underground season. God is working beneath the surface, shaping your foundation, deepening your roots, preparing you for what's to come. Let me share a simple example. Questions. Imagine a young man who has just started his career. He's talented, hardworking, and full of dreams. But no matter how much effort he puts in, success seems slow. Questions. Others around him are being promoted, earning recognition, moving ahead. He starts feeling frustrated, even questioning his worth. But what he doesn't see is that every project he works on, questions, every failure he faces, every lesson he learns, is strengthening his character. He's building patience, humility, and experience. Those are his roots. And when his time finally comes, questions, he'll rise not as a weak plant, but as a strong, deeply grounded tree. In contrast, think about a weed. It sprouts almost instantly, but it has shallow roots. It grows quickly, questions, but it also gets destroyed quickly. Many people today chase weed like success. Quick fame, quick money, quick results. But without deep roots, it doesn't last. Questions. You need time underground before you can shine above ground. Sometimes God hides you not to punish you, but to prepare you. You may feel buried, but in truth, you've been planted. Questions. There's a big difference between being buried and being planted. When something is buried, it's meant to die. But when something is planted, it's meant to grow. Questions. The same soil that looks like your end might actually be your beginning. I once met a woman who told me, for years I felt invisible. I worked so hard, but no one noticed. Questions. My dreams were taking forever. I smiled and said, that's because God was still writing your roots. A few years later, she started her own business and it became incredibly successful. Questions. She told me, now I understand. If I had succeeded earlier, I wouldn't have known how to handle it. The waiting made me strong. That's the secret of growth. It's invisible at first. Questions. When a seed is planted, it doesn't sprout immediately. It faces pressure from the soil above, darkness all around, and complete isolation. Yet it doesn't complain. It doesn't give up. Questions. It quietly pushes downward first, anchoring itself deep before reaching upward toward the light. In life, when you feel pressure, when you feel surrounded by darkness, questions, when nothing seems to move, that's your root season. God is building your strength where no one can see it. You may not be blooming yet, but you are becoming unshakable. Questions. Think about bamboo. It's one of the most powerful symbols of patience in nature. When you plant bamboo, for the first 4 years, you see almost no growth above the ground. Questions. You might even think the seed has died, but in the 5th year, it shoots up to nearly 90 feet tall in just 6 weeks. But did it really grow in 6 weeks? No, it was growing for 5 years. Questions. Just underground. It was building a root system strong enough to support its rapid rise. That's exactly how God works with us. He takes His time because He wants your growth to be stable, not shaky. Questions. The longer you spend underground, in learning, in waiting, in silence, the stronger you'll stand when your time comes. When you look at successful people, don't just admire their fruit. Questions. Understand their roots. Every tall building you see has a deep foundation below it. Every great leader you admire once went through seasons of obscurity, failure, and waiting. Questions. The unseen seasons are what make the visible moments shine brighter. So if you are in that stage of life where you feel unseen, where your hard work isn't paying off, your dreams seem distant, questions, your prayers seem unanswered, don't lose hope. The seed never stops growing just because you can't see it. God's timing may be silent, but it's never absent. Questions. Sometimes the most meaningful things in life are happening when it seems like nothing is happening. The roots of faith are growing. The lessons of patience are forming. Questions. And your inner strength is solidifying. When your season to bloom comes, you'll rise beautifully. Not by luck, but by preparation. The next time you feel like you're stuck underground, questions. Remember this, you're not buried, you're planted. You're not forgotten, you're forming. And you're not behind, you're being built. One day, questions. When you finally emerge into the light and people say, wow, you grew so fast, you'll smile quietly and think, no, I just grew underground where no one could see me. So, trust the soil. Questions. Trust the process, trust the silence. Because deep down beneath the surface, something extraordinary is growing you.